Did you know more than 7 million people in the UK are struggling to afford basic essentials? And that includes many who work full-time jobs. How is that even possible? The UK is the 6th richest economy in the world, yet entire families are living paycheck to paycheck, drowning in bills and relying on food banks just to survive. This isn't just about inflation or a tough year. This is a full-blown affordability crisis, and it's getting worse by the month. What if I told you this isn't just bad luck or bad timing, but the result of 10 deep systemic problems that no one in power seems willing to fix? From rents that outpace salaries to policies that quietly drain your wallet, we're about to expose the truth behind why the UK has become so unaffordable for the average person. And here's the shocking part. Most of these issues were avoidable. By the end of this video, you'll see exactly how the system is designed to work against you and what you need to know to survive. Number 1, housing crisis. Let's start with the biggest elephant in the room, housing. In the UK, owning a home has become a fantasy for millions. The average house price in the UK is now over £280,000. And that's not even in London. In the capital, it's nearly double. So what's driving this? It's a toxic mix of too much demand, not enough supply, and a property market that's been treated like a casino. For decades, property investors and landlords have turned homes into investment assets, not places to live. Meanwhile, councils build fewer homes, and regulations don't stop the madness. Renters haven't been spared either. In some cities, rents have jumped over 20% in just 2 years. Young people are trapped in what's called the rental treadmill, unable to save. Most of their income goes to rent. And if you think help is on the way, think again. Government schemes like Help to Buy have actually pushed prices up even more by increasing demand without fixing supply. The result? Entire generations priced out. People in their 30s still living with parents, families squeezed into tiny flats, and landlords holding all the cards. So when people say, just move to a cheaper area, they're missing the point. This is not about bad decisions. It's about a broken system. A system that rewards those who already own and punishes those just trying to get a roof over their head. Number 2, wage stagnation. Now let's talk about your paycheck, or rather, why it hasn't grown in real terms for over a decade. Despite rising living costs, UK wages have barely kept up with inflation. In fact, when adjusted for inflation, average earnings today are lower than they were in 2008. Think about that, paying more, but earning less. This phenomenon is called wage stagnation. And it's not a glitch, it's a feature of the system. Employers have held wages down, citing economic uncertainty, global competition, and automation. Meanwhile, CEO pay and corporate profits have soared. And it gets worse. The rise of zero-hour contracts, gig work, and part-time roles means millions don't even have stable incomes. Many are forced to juggle multiple jobs just to survive. The dream of working hard and getting ahead. For many, it's just that, a dream. Because no matter how hard you grind, the numbers don't add up. Rent, bills, transport, they rise. But your wages, flatline. So here's the real question. If wages don't rise but everything else does, how are people supposed to live? Comment below, has your salary kept up with your living costs? We want to hear. And if this hits close to home, make sure to subscribe. We're breaking down the real issues that affect your daily life. And trust me, this is just the beginning. Number 3, rising utility bills. Imagine this. You come home after a long day, flip on the lights, boil a kettle, and turn on the heating. And in the back of your mind, there's that familiar dread. How much is this going to cost me? Utility bills in the UK have become a modern-day horror story. Energy prices have surged over 50% in some areas in just the past few years. And while global factors like war and supply chain issues played a role, it's not the whole story. The real kicker? The UK's energy market is riddled with outdated infrastructure, poor regulation, and a system that punishes the average user. Energy companies collapse, and the bill always ends up on your lap. Literally, you're encouraged to switch providers as if that's going to solve structural failure. Water bills have gone up too, and you might not even notice until the direct debit quietly eats up more of your paycheck each month. Add in standing charges, fees you pay just to be connected, and suddenly doing nothing still costs you money. This isn't just a winter issue anymore. Households are being squeezed year-round, forced to make impossible choices, heat or eat, lights or food. When basic utilities become luxuries, the problem isn't your budgeting. It's a system that's turned essential services into profit machines. No one should fear the thermostat. But in the UK today, turning on the heating feels like playing financial roulette. Number 4. Transportation costs. Let's talk about getting from point A to point B. Simple. But in the UK, it's a financial juggling act. Start with public transport. The UK has some of the highest rail fares in Europe. A monthly train pass can cost more than a week's rent, especially for commuters travelling into major cities like London or Manchester. And what do you get in return? Delays, cancellations, overcrowded carriages, and ticket machines that seem to charge random prices depending on the day of the week. Buses? Not much better. Many routes in rural areas have been slashed entirely, leaving whole communities stranded. Meanwhile, fares continue to rise with no significant improvements in service or accessibility. For people without cars, the options are either unreliable, unaffordable, or both. Now let's talk driving. Owning a car used to be the backup plan, but now it's a cost monster. Fuel prices remain volatile, insurance premiums are soaring, and don't even mention repair costs. On top of that, ultra-low emission zones add another layer of expense, especially for those driving older vehicles they can't afford to replace. Transport in the UK doesn't just cost too much, it actively works against the people who rely on it most. Whether you're trying to get to work, school, or a hospital appointment, there's a constant sense that you're being punished for simply needing to move. And here's the sting: transport isn't a luxury, it's a lifeline. But in today's UK, even lifelines have price tags. Number 5. Food inflation. Once upon a time, the weekly grocery shop was predictable. You knew what your essentials cost, and you could plan meals around a modest budget. But now, walking into a UK supermarket feels like entering a price roulette. Food inflation has been one of the most brutal, invisible forces hitting. In just the past 2 years, staples like bread, milk, eggs, and pasta have surged by as much as 30%. And it's not just about numbers on a receipt. It's about what families have to sacrifice. Skipping fresh produce, cutting out meat, or relying on canned goods to stretch meals. What's causing it? A cocktail of Brexit-induced trade barriers, global supply chain disruptions, energy costs affecting food production, and supermarket pricing strategies that favor profit over people. And while big chains post record profits, everyday shoppers face shrinking options and growing frustration. Just shop smarter doesn't cut it anymore. Budgeting tips can't make your pound go further when everything's inflated. The poorest households spend a greater proportion of their, making this inflation a deeply unfair burden. Meanwhile, food banks have become a normalized part of life, a tragic symbol of how broken things really are. Over 3 million emergency food parcels were distributed last year alone. So when we talk about affordability, it's not about luxuries. It's about whether people can afford the basics. And increasingly, in one of the wealthiest nations on earth, the answer is not really. Number 6. Childcare and education expenses. Raising a child in the UK isn't just a challenge, it's becoming a financial impossibility for many families. Let's start with childcare. Full-time nursery for a toddler can cost upwards of £1,200 per month. That's more than many people's rent or mortgage. And unlike countries where childcare is heavily subsidized, in the UK, it's largely a private expense. This has forced many parents, especially women, because it simply doesn't add up. Then there's school. Supposedly free, right? But parents know better. Uniforms, school trips, lunch money, classroom supplies, it all adds up. One survey found that families spend nearly £900 a year just preparing for the school year. That's before extracurriculars or tutoring, which have practically become necessities in an underfunded education system. And when kids grow up, university brings another layer of financial weight. Tuition fees of £9,250 a year, sky-high student housing costs, and daily living expenses mean graduates are leaving school tens of thousands of pounds in debt, starting adult life with a burden they may carry for decades. Here's the brutal irony. The system tells you to invest in your children's future, but makes doing so unaffordable at every stage. It punishes families for wanting their kids to thrive. Should be the great equalizer. Instead, it's becoming one more way the affordability crisis keeps people locked in place, where every choice feels like a compromise, and every milestone comes with a price tag. Number 7. Healthcare access strains. For decades, the NHS was the UK's crown jewel, free, universal healthcare for all. But today that promise feels like it's unraveling. Not because people don't need it, but because the system is cracking under pressure. Start with access. GP appointments can take weeks, even months. Emergency departments are overwhelmed. Mental health services, chronically underfunded and overburdened. For millions, the NHS is no longer the safety net it once was. It's a waiting list that never ends. This has led to a disturbing trend. People turning to private healthcare, not out of luxury, but out of desperation. Paying hundreds for consultations, scans, or surgery just to avoid unbearable delays. And if you can't afford it, you wait and hope. Then there's the hidden costs. Prescriptions, dental care, and eye exams all come with fees. In England, over 10% of people have skipped prescriptions due to cost, and that number is rising. It's easy to say the NHS is still free, but the reality on the ground tells a different story. The system is stretched so thin that even basic care is delayed or denied, and when health becomes a matter of wealth, the gap between rich and poor widens even more. No one should have to choose between their health and their wallet. But in today's UK, that's the decision facing millions. And it's yet another layer in the cost of living crisis, one that literally puts lives at risk. Tax burden on the working class. When people think of taxes, they often imagine the wealthy footing the biggest bills. But in the UK, it's the working and middle classes who carry the heaviest load, and they're doing it quietly. Let's start with VAT, the value-added tax. Every time you buy essentials like toiletries, cleaning supplies, or even some food items, you're paying a flat 20% tax. This isn't based on how much you earn. It's the same for a billionaire and someone earning minimum wage. That's what makes it regressive. It hits those with the least, the hardest. Then there's council tax, an outdated postcode lottery system that charges some of the poorest households more than wealthy property owners in richer areas. Add in fuel duty, national insurance built into everyday life, and the picture becomes painfully clear. The average person is paying more than their fair share. Meanwhile, many large corporations and ultra-wealthy individuals legally exploit tax loopholes, offshore accounts, and creative accounting to avoid paying what they owe. It's all legal, but it's fundamentally unfair. The result? A system where those struggling to keep the lights on are also propping up public services, while some of the richest contribute a fraction of what they could. People aren't asking for a free ride. They're asking for a fair one. But in today's UK, fairness feels like a luxury. And the tax system, instead of leveling the field, is just another weight on the shoulders of those already carrying too much. Number 9. rental trap and lack of home ownership. In the UK today, renting isn't a stepping stone, it's a trap. A never-ending cycle that keeps millions locked out of the dream of owning a home. Let's break it down. The average monthly rent in cities like London, Bristol or Brighton, £1,500. That's before bills. And while renters pour thousands into someone else's mortgage, saving for their own deposit becomes nearly impossible. You're told to just save, but how do you save what's left after rent, bills and basic living costs eat up your entire income? Add to that the soaring cost of house deposits, now averaging over £60,000 in many areas, and the odds start to feel impossible. Then there's the credit checks, the interest rates, the strict lending criteria. Even if you do everything right, the system keeps moving the goalposts. And the longer you rent, the harder it gets. No equity, no security. Tenants face unpredictable rent hikes, short-term leases and limited rights. You can be priced out of your home with barely any notice, and good luck finding a new place with decent conditions. This isn't just about home ownership, it's about stability, wealth building and dignity. Renting for life under these conditions means permanently handing over your future to landlords and agencies that operate on profit, not fairness. In the UK, owning a home is no longer a reward for hard work. It's a prize reserved for the few, and everyone else is left renting their way through a rigged system. Number 10. Government policy failures. At the heart of every crisis we've discussed lies one common thread: government policy, or rather, the lack of effective people-first policy that tackles the real issues facing ordinary Britons. Let's be honest, many of the problems we're facing today didn't come out of nowhere. They are the product of years, even decades, of policy decisions that have optics over real quality of life. Austerity measures slashed public services to the bone. Social housing construction was neglected. Regulation on energy, housing and employment was weakened in the name of market freedom. Meanwhile, politicians point fingers and play blame games instead of acting. Initiatives are announced with big headlines but fall flat on delivery. Think of Help to Buy or Rent to Own, schemes that often inflate markets rather than solve underlying issues. And while ordinary people are told to tighten their belts, the elite enjoy tax breaks, subsidies, and bailout protections that never trickle down. What's sold as fiscal responsibility ends up being a convenient excuse for inaction. The truth is, without structural reform, no amount of budgeting tips or side hustles will fix this crisis. People don't need motivational policies that work. That means investment in housing, fair wages, real support for families, and holding corporations accountable. Because until those in power choose people over profit, the affordability crisis in the UK will continue, no matter how hard individuals try to keep their heads above water. The cost of living isn't just numbers, it's your life, your future, your family. So tell us in the comments, which of these 10 issues hits you the hardest? And if this opened your eyes, go check out our last video. It goes even deeper into what's really going on behind the headlines. We pour heart into every video. So if you want to support us, hit that subscribe button. It's just one click, but it means the world to us.